Hey everyone, and welcome to Milo Game Reviews, where we review games both new and old on all platforms. My name is Milo, and if you like the content that I make, then please subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you never miss a review when it comes out. Today we are taking a look at the PlayStation 2 classic in the form of Ratchet and Clank. Recently, I got a real yearning to play some platformer games, and though many immediately think of Nintendo when it comes to platformers, during the mid-2000s, it was actually the PlayStation 2 that had the most action platformers available. Now I emphasize action platformers, as most of these included a protagonist with a weapon they could use rather than solely relying on precision jumping. The golden trio for the PlayStation 2 were Jak and Daxter, Sly Raccoon, and of course, Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet and Clank came out not too long after the first Jak and Daxter, and the members of Naughty Dog, who made Jak, actually chimed in from time to time to help Insomniac with several things when they worked on Ratchet and Clank. The story revolves around Ratchet, who stumbles upon a small robot who is on a mission to find the galactic superhero, Captain Quark. Captain Quark is a loudmouth, obnoxious antagonist who behaves like a cartoon character from Despicable Me or any other Minions movie. Even back then, the animations during the cutscenes were excellent. Though most cinematics were focused on characters just talking to each other, the figures would often move around frantically with very expressive faces. The audio does sometimes leave a bit to be desired though, as it's not always crystal clear. I can already say that they improved upon the audio and voice acting by a mile in the sequel, Ratchet and Clank 2: Going Commando. In terms of gameplay is where Ratchet and Clank really shines, as it's a platformer with plenty of variety and an amazing tempo to keep things fresh and ongoing. Instead of going from level to level, you travel to different planets, and these planets often have branching paths and objectives that you can tackle in a different order. Sometimes you need a certain piece of equipment in order to complete an objective, and it can happen that the piece of equipment is on a completely different planet, and thus there's even a Metroidvania element in here, where you have to travel back and forth depending on the key items that you have. The worlds vary from lush green forests to sprawling cities or even cold tundras. Now we have seen that in many platform games before, of course, but what sets Ratchet and Clank apart is that it all has this beautiful, colorful cyberpunk aesthetic. Especially the cities shine with so many flying ships and small details everywhere. It truly is a blast just to walk around and take in the sights and atmosphere, even so many years later. But even other planets have many things happen in the skybox, like local fauna flying in circles or cargo freighters doing their job. The draw distance is really solid, and it makes the game still beautiful and great to look at. On these many planets, you will need to jump, glide, and fight your way through hordes of enemy robots and monsters. You can use melee attacks with your trusted wrench, but what the game pushes forward to the most are the many different wacky weapons that you can use. You choose between them with a selection wheel, and weapons can vary from a machine gun to grenades, rocket launchers, sniper rifles, or funny and bizarre ones, like a weapon that shoots out flesh-eating tiny robots, or a giant boxing glove to knock bad guys out. The difficulty in the later levels gets pretty challenging, and you are encouraged to purchase new and better weapons to keep the playing field equal. Some of the bosses are really challenging too, and it can be a bit frustrating since of course back in the day you had to start the battle all the way from the beginning if you died, since there were no checkpoints. Besides platforming and battling, there are sections where you get to partake in hoverboard races and space battles in a gunship. Then there are also segments where you get to play as Clank himself. It's cool that they did this, since a game like Jak and Daxter that creates the illusion of two protagonists actually just revolves around Jak, with Daxter only giving commentary. In Ratchet and Clank, you actually get to be both, and Clank's sections play out more like a puzzle platformer. Clank is pretty weak compared to Ratchet, and thus you have the ability to summon these small robots to do your bidding. You can have them follow you and attack enemies for you, or have them open closed doors. I believe you only get to play as Clank 2 or 3 times, but it adds even more to the variety in an already varied game. Now even though I do think the gameplay is great, the controls of Ratchet and Clank 1 are a bit floaty and definitely could have used a bit more tweaking. Games like Jak and Daxter or Super Mario have incredibly tight and responsive controls, and this is essential for platformers, since so much of the gameplay is dependent on you performing quick and precise actions with those controls. It is yet again something that Insomniac fixed in Ratchet and Clank 2 and 3, as the controls there feel as good as they should be. I also do think that the story is not as great as it could have been. Much of the story in the second half of the game centers on the distrust and how Ratchet and Clank actually dislike each other. It's the classic trope of two strangers forced to work together and first not liking each other and then eventually understanding that they have a true friendship. I just would have preferred it if they'd liked each other through the entire game, as they could have done more original or funny things with the story instead of this cliche, as it's also evident in the sequels, as they act like proper friends and partners all the time. All in all, I loved playing Ratchet and Clank again and reliving this golden age of platformers with these unique settings and lovable characters. It is still a bit rough around the edges, and you can see potential on things to improve for the sequels, which they luckily did. But Ratchet and Clank will always have a special place, as it was the first time we got introduced to this universe. In the end, Ratchet and Clank gets the verdict of a 7.9. Now that I'm done writing this review, I am very excited to jump back in and continue playing Ratchet 2 for the next review, as I can already hint that I like that game even more than this first entry. The real question is if Ratchet and Clank 3, Up Your Arsenal, will top Part 2, or if the PlayStation 3 versions still hold up. In any case, there are plenty of Ratchet and Clank games for me to sink my teeth into, so I hope to see you all again on the next Milo Game Reviews.